It's almost here. The 7th annual Annapolis Film Festival opens on Thursday, March 21st in Annapolis and rolls on for 4 solid days. This year, the festival features more than 80 films along with dozens of panels, Q&A sessions, and yes, my favorite, the parties. Tickets and passes are available at AnnapolisFilmFestival.com, but right now we're diving in a little bit deeper and speaking with the faces behind the films, directors, producers, and actors. You want some insight to what you don't usually get? Well, here you go. Hey, joining us this morning is John Chester, who is the director and the impetus, I guess, behind The Biggest Little Farm, which is a film that will be screening at the Annapolis Film Festival on Friday, March 22nd at 12:30 at Maryland Hall in the main theater. And then again on Sunday, March 24th at 10:30 a.m., also at Maryland Hall, but in the Bowen Theater, which will be down on the lower level at the Annapolis Film Festival, which gets underway this Thursday. How are you today, John?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here talking with you.
Absolutely. Well, The Biggest Little Farm is it's a neat film. You are a filmmaker. And
you had it right. Yeah, I was a filmmaker, and I left filmmaking because of this dream that my wife and I had to start this farm.
You I want to say threw it all out the window. You bought a 200-acre piece of, from what I understand, it was a desolate piece of land that needed a lot of work, with a dream to build an oasis just north of LA, to have a sustainable farm, to have organic crops that you're growing, just live a different lifestyle.
Yeah, and even more than that, like beyond the organic thing and the sustainable part, it was really this goal of creating this from this sort of defunct, conventionally run lemon farm. We wanted to create this farm that would essentially regenerate itself through extreme levels of biodiversity, like a maximizing biological diversity that allowed the farm to run as a self-contained ecosystem, which means you have to kind of turn the ecosystem back on. And when you do that, you bring out not only the good things, but you bring out all the bad things that most farms in their invited, so you're dealing with all the issues that are out there that would work against a farm typically, but you're trying to kind of find your way to kind of cohabitate with these issues and find the good and the bad, so to speak.
And this has taken about 15 years?
We're 8 years in so far, and we started the farm on the first day of what would become a 7-year drought, which was the worst drought to hit California in 1,200 years. So
your timing was impeccable.
It was, and I think that, and as a filmmaker, I'm used to bad timing. But it was an incredibly rough start, but we were so naive, we didn't even know how bad it was. We didn't even know how bad the soil was when we acquired the farm. These are all things we learned over the course of 2 to 3 years, bringing in various, mentors to try to help us figure out how to turn this thing around.
Well, I guess it's something they don't teach you in film school. How to farm a land. And well, it's funny, if you look at Google Maps for Apricot Lane Farm in Moorhead Park, it is just a green oasis in the middle of of brown. So you guys obviously have succeeded in doing that.
Well, to the north of us was literally the remains of the largest indoor factory farm chicken operation. It was an egg operation. It was called Egg City, and they raised 3 million chickens, laying about 2 million eggs a day. And that was now defunct. And then to our west was a massive Driscoll dairy operation that is 350 acres of hoop houses covered in plastic growing operation for berries. So we were in the middle of a very industrial, conventional type agricultural movement. And that's not to sort of snub their efforts and how we all got here in this conventional growing methodology. But we were not necessarily in an environment that understood or supported the way we were going to try to farm this land.
Your successes through this farm now, I guess, sort of had a flashback to your filmmaker days, and you decided to make a film about your journey with your wife, Molly, and I believe you have a son in the middle of all this.
Yeah, so, the reason I made the film was, I documented along the way, because as a filmmaker, I've always found that it's more painful to regret not having some footage of things than to regret it. It's more painful to go through the process of acquiring the footage than it is to regret not having it.
Sure.
Say that better. And so I decided to make the film around 5 years in when I saw a complete turnaround and return of predator species of insects and wildlife coming back to the farm to actually help balance out the issues that not only the ones that we created, but are inherent in farming in this way in general. And that was, I think, something that I had never really expected to see to the degree that we saw it. And I just knew at that moment that I had to show what was happening on the farm, because we weren't really sure it was going to work until 5 years in. It was actually a pretty rough road. I mean, we got hit by 3 of the worst fires to hit the county and even the state, one of the largest fires to hit the state of California.
Right.
It was one bad thing after another. We would have 6 weeks of 60 mile to 70 mile an hour windstorms. It was, like apocalyptic. And to see that return of nature was really, pretty inspiring.
What possessed you and your wife Molly to do this? I mean, do you have a farming background? Did you have just the desire, or just to have a better planet?
I think a little bit of both, but mainly Molly was a traditional food chef, and she really understood the nutrient density of food, the quality and depth of flavor, all really starts with how the food is grown. And it starts with the soil. I mean, end of story. The healthier the soil system, that's what informs the health of all the food we eat, the deep and the depth of flavor. And I came from a conventional farming background, growing up begrudgingly, more or less, on farms back east in Maryland, doing, mowing and building fences, and didn't really have an understanding of the soil. And they were corn and soy farms that mostly grew corn and soy to feed Purdue chickens on the Eastern Shore. So I really didn't see myself as a farmer, more like glorified maintenance man. But once Mom really sort of shift that focus, that the really great tasting food came from farms that were really focused on soil development and regeneration. It was pretty amazing that not many people were doing this in Southern California. As healthy as Southern Californians, typically are thought to be, they weren't really getting the best food. And we saw an opportunity to start with really great tasting eggs that were pasture raised, truly pasture raised. We saw that there was a gap in this opportunity for us to fill.
Well, it certainly looks like you filled it, and you've produced what looks to be a great movie. And I was just seeing Apollo 11 in the theaters, and I was so excited when I saw the trailer for The Biggest Little Farm on there. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's coming to the Annapolis Film Festival. I can't wait to see this." And the photography, I've got to say, is just absolutely spectacular, and it looks funny. I mean, it looks into everything that, like you had mentioned. What do we do now? We've had a wildfire. How do we get this working? And it's quite a story. I understand that there's 2 stars in the film, that Emma and Greasy. Are they the
Emma the pig and Mr. Greasy the rooster? There's a few animal stars. It really does follow the stories of these animal, I guess, characters, for lack of a better word, that we bring onto the farm, and problems that we kind of create in farming this way for them unintentionally. But yeah, I mean, the film's been really well received. I didn't expect it. None of us did. I think we've won 7, awards in the festival circuit. It's going to be releasing in theaters May 10th in a fairly wide release. And then it goes out and releases in theaters throughout the world midsummer. So not completely unexpected, but it's so great to just have people embrace this story. And I think it's because it's not really about a farm. It's really about what it means to be a human, interacting with our planet. And it's unflinchingly honest in terms of how even an idealistic pursuit is fraught with all types of errors in our ways of thinking.
You guys, actually, as the farm, are now certified organic and biodynamic, which is a big deal.
Yeah, so the organic certification is really interesting, because most people don't realize that organic certification does not require handling your soils in a regenerative and healthy way. It's mainly about not using synthetically derived pesticides and or synthetically derived fertilizers, which is a good start. It's a really good start. But the biodynamic or even regenerative certifications start to look at how to create a holistic operation where you're using your farm and your methodologies to regenerate nature, most specifically the health of the soil, because it all starts and ends there. I think farms can farm without certification so long as they're really just following principles that, create healthy soils.
That makes all the sense in the world. Now, was the movie that you produced here, The Biggest Little Farm, is that part into Sustain? Because I know you've got an awful lot of videos and you do short stuff and stuff like that. I guess you can never take the filmmaker out of you can take the filmmaker out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the filmmaker, or vice versa. But you've got a lot of shorts on your farm website and whatnot. Now, is the movie a part of the marketing, I guess, and the business of the farm, or is this a separate type of an entity?
Yeah, I can only sell but so many avocados. We didn't really make the film to market the farm. I made the film because I believe in this way of farming, and I think we have been able to, in our own way, illuminate the possibilities that exist within a biologically diverse farming system. And I just think the conversation around this is a lot easier to have when you have an example to point to, like that. An example where someone can say, like that, look at those different connections that were illustrated in that film. And then we can begin to sort of have a conversation where the general public really understands the complexity of something that we are all a part of, but have not been able to really have words to describe, because it's so vastly complex and intricate when you're talking about the way an ecosystem sort of works.
Any regrets now that you're into it?
The only regret is that it's really hard to run a farm, and it's really, really hard to fly around the country and promote a film you really care about, all while having a wife and a son and a farm that you absolutely love more than anything else as well. It's that part's challenging. I need 3 of me.
Oh, well, we'll work on that. Well, I'll tell you, for anybody that's listening that wants to get a little taste of The Biggest Little Farm, and that would be a literal taste, apricotlanefarms.com is the website. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. Check out all the stuff they've got. You do have a store on there where you can get some merch and some swag, as well as some of the goodies that you do produce out of there. And you do ship, which is kind of neat.
And I think most importantly, check out the trailer. And I think the website for the film is thebiggestlittle.farmmovie.com.
Yep.
And the trailer's there, and there's some additional festival screenings happening throughout the country till May when it launches in theaters.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, The Biggest Little Farm will be here in Annapolis this Friday on March 22nd at 12:30 p.m. at Maryland Hall in the main theater. It'll be back again on Sunday, the 24th at 10:30, also at Maryland Hall down in the Bowen Theater, which is on the lower level. The Biggest Little Farm, again, I saw the trailer in the theater on the big screen, which is what you're going to see here in Annapolis. The photography is fantastic. There were some incredibly funny moments, which I've got to imagine there has to be between two. It's Green Acres for the new millennium, I guess, to a point.
Yeah.
Where you and your wife are just trying to figure out, okay, how the hell do we make this work? I am looking forward to seeing the full film. I do recommend everybody do it. And I think, I thank you, John Chester, who is the director of this Biggest Little Farm film. And I appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for your interest in what we're doing.
Thank you for joining us to learn a little bit more about the films coming to the Annapolis Film Festival. Remember, tickets and passes can be obtained at AnnapolisFilmFestival.com. This is John Fernay, and I'll see you at the movies.